months ago. I had no idea that it was not called clear wine. The white wine, I always called it clear wine. And so we'd go to a restaurant on my radio tour. You're going to all these cities. I went to 48 of our 50 states on radio tour, going around meeting all these radio stations. And they would order a bottle of wine, and they'd be like, "What kind of wine do you want, Shane?" I'd be like, "Just give me a bottle of your finest clear wine." And they would start laughing.
Intersection of good drinks, good music, and good times. This is Hops and Spirits Bar Conversations.
Joining us here on the Bar Conversations, I think we're going to have a fun time on this one. I think he's got a couple good stories to share, and he's making some good music as well. Let's welcome in country artist and songwriter Shane Profitt.
Thank you, brother. I'm excited to hang out with you.
Absolutely. Now, this is Bar Conversations. I know beforehand, if you're watching it, he has a red Solo cup, but I don't think it's what you would typically expect from him in it. No. What you drinking tonight?
I am drinking, the ice is melted. I'm drinking ice water now. I'm getting up, I tell you, the plan is to get up early in the morning to try to that 4 a.m. That 4 a.m. alarm pretty early. I'm paving.
I completely understand that. I've got something a little stronger because I know you're a guy that likes some classic country. I got a little Alan Jackson Silver Belly whiskey tonight. Now, if you are drinking, what's your go-to drink these days?
And I like a little bit of vodka brand. I've been on a vodka brand. Squeeze a little wine, go in there. But if like I'm home, I'll say I order that because I never buy. And so if I'm at home, like over here, I'm looking. I have a big old bag. I've got a bunch of big. I've got peach bird dog over here. Got Woodford Reserve and Maker's Mark. So I've got a pretty good over here in the cabin.
I like it
when I'm feeling froggy.
But like you said, you got to wake up early. I understand that. I got to wake up, and usually my daughter likes to wake us up nice and early as well. And I'm guessing you wake up occasionally early to go hit the great outdoors. Is that, if you're not on stage, is that something that's just the perfect place for you to get out there, whether it's hunting, fishing, or just kind of enjoying a good, peaceful, quiet day?
Yeah, and I really like this sounds a little weird. I just got a new side by side, like it's like a Polaris Ranger is what they call it, and I just go for little rides on that. Me and my girlfriend hop on there and we just cruise around the neighborhood even. And today it was a little too hot to go deer hunting, and I didn't have the right wind that I wanted, so I went arrowhead hunting all day today, and I found some pretty cool little stuff. So I just like being outside, whether I'm in a deer stand or a boat or, looking for arrowheads or even just riding around. I just enjoy it.
So you really are just a good old country boy.
Yeah, I mean, like we just had supper, and Mom made salmon patties and Brussels sprouts and mac and cheese, and it was pretty good too. And then she made this thing called Watergate salad. It's got like mush. It doesn't look very good, but it's really good. It's got like marshmallows and pecans and pistachios, and it's pineapple. It's got pineapple in it. I don't know how it's green, but it's good. It's real good.
Hey, nothing wrong with that, and it's fun to hear you talk about things, and I'm curious too. Is it really true that you got like your first kind of real guitar like 5 years ago, and that's kind of when this all started for you?
Yeah, I was let me think here. I was a senior in high school. So, yeah, it's been right at 5 years now, I guess. My granddad asked me what I wanted for Christmas, and I told him I wanted to learn how to play guitar. And so he taught me G, C, and D on the guitar. That's the first three chords everybody needs to learn. And once you learn G, C, and D, you can pretty much play all Hank Jr. and Merle Haggard and Conway songs. So the first song I learned was Whiskey Bent and Hellbound by Hank Jr. And ever since then, man, I stuck with it. I started playing Travis Tritt, and I'd say probably about 6 months after I first picked one up, uh, I had my first ever like paying gig at a little Cajun restaurant down the road here. They were having a grand opening for their Cajun restaurant, first night open, and they asked me to come in and play live music for 2 hours. And I only knew like 6 songs fully. And so 6 songs is not going to last 2 hours. And so I would play the 6 songs and then I would just start from scratch. I'd go eat me a couple crawfish and then come back and start from scratch. And I'd play the same 6 songs again. And then I did that 4 or 5 times and it lasted 2 hours. I made it last 2 hours and they paid me $100 bill and all I could eat crawfish that night. So
Hey, that's not a bad first gig. And was it true that you also wanted to learn the guitar because at family gatherings, basically you had to bring a side dish and an instrument? Is that kind of how it all worked too?
yeah, absolutely. So like at our Thanksgiving, our Christmas, our Easter, everything. All my family's from Eastern Kentucky. Now we live in Columbia, Tennessee now. But anytime we have a family gathering or any kind of family function, everybody brings a couple dishes, whether it be a pie or a casserole or whatever. So you'll have your casserole in one hand and a guitar case in the other, and everybody just gathers around after we get done eating. And like my granddad, he plays a Martin guitar, and my dad plays banjo. My mom plays bass. Cousins and stuff play mandolin and fiddle, and it's a lot of fun. I got tired of being the one. Don't get me wrong, I still get the extra piece of pie, but back then I would get the extra piece of pie and just watch everybody play. But now it seems like I'm kind of in the middle of that circle now, so that's really cool. And uh, you know, you just get to see because I'm not home very much now, and when you get to see everybody, and they're like, "Hey, play that one song I saw you play on that stage that night." So you just pull out that guitar and uh, you know, I really like testing out my new songs on family because they're not afraid to be honest with you. And so anytime I write a new song, there'll be 3 or 4 nights a week. I come home, I'll tell my mom and dad, "Hey, y'all go in the kitchen where that big Bluetooth speaker is. I got a new song to play for you." So they all come in here and we listen to it together. And mom will sit there and study on it for a second and be like, "Shane, I really like that, but I don't like this part." Or she'll kind of nitpick it for me and tell me what I need to change occasionally. So it's really cool.
I was going to say, it's nice to have true constructive criticism from family and friends. Now, I will say, I thought you played a mean wine glass in that one video. So, I mean, it wasn't like you couldn't hop in and play every now and then.
Right. Hey, funny thing about that wine. So up until I had a record deal, I'd never tried wine before in my life, ever. My grandma was a big wine drinker. I do remember that, but I never tried it or anything like that, and never tried champagne or anything fancy like that. It was always if I was drinking, I was probably going to drink a Bush Light. That's about as fancy as it got around here. And I would watch Dad occasionally pull out a mason jar of moonshine he got from a buddy or something like that. And, uh, yeah, up until I had a record deal, I'd never tried wine or anything high end. And so whenever I got my record deal, up until literally just a couple months ago, I had no idea that it was not called clear wine. The white wine, I always called it clear wine. And so we'd go to a restaurant on my radio tour. You know, you're going to all these cities. I went to 48 of our 50 states on radio tour, going around meeting all these radio stations. And they would order a bottle of wine, and they'd be like, "What kind of wine do you want, Shane?" I'd be like, "Just give me a bottle of your finest clear wine." And they would start laughing, and I never knew what they were laughing about up until a couple months ago.
And see now you're probably an aficionado, sommelier. You can probably tell everything about wine now, right?
Well, I know with the I think it's called, yeah, red wine. With the red wine, you can like spin it in the glass and watch the arms or whatever of it, and you can act like you know what know what you're doing. But the truth is, I mean, I'll smell of it and look at the waiter and smell of it, spin it around the glass, and be like, "That's just fine." And, pour me a glass of it, please.
Hey, I am the same way with whiskey, even though I do this show and reviews, so I understand where you're coming from on that. And you talk about growing up in Tennessee and family in Eastern Kentucky. What impact did that have on you and your life and music and everything?
Well, so I would say impact wise, definitely without my family, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. I'm a firm believer that there's a difference in a house and a home, and my parents definitely brought me up in a home instead of a house. And I mean, I could tell my parents I wanted to be an astronaut, and they'd watch the spaceship take off tomorrow. So that's a huge blessing in itself. But all of my family, they kind of revolve around bluegrass music. And whenever I started playing country, I won't ever forget. My granddad came to a show, and he heard me play "Better Off Fishing," I think it was. And in that song, in the chorus, it goes, "Far away from the missing and the bitching. Honestly, baby, I'm better off fishing." My granddad came backstage after the show, and he looked at me. He's a real church-going man. He came and looked at me after the show, and he said, "Shane, that was a really, really good time, but I just feel like you need to watch your mouth." I was like, okay. So anytime I know my granddad's out in the crowd now, I try not to use any kind of profanity. I'll do "far away from the missing and the wishing," or I'll make something up on the fly instead of cussing around him. So it's my whole family. They're a big church going family, and I am too. But I'd never even thought about that. I don't think my mom had ever heard me cuss before until I picked up a guitar. And I think the first song she heard me do was "Kiss My Country Ass" by Blake Shelton. And her jaw dropped and her eyes got wide. And I was like, "I'm sorry, Mama. I'm trying to make money." So, but yeah, I mean, my family, they're really, really great. And music has been a huge role in all of our lives. I remember growing up, we'd go to church, and I remember watching Mom be up in the choir and everything, and she would always smack my arm if I wasn't actually singing the hymns, out in the church pew. She'd smack my arm and be like, "Boy, you better sing." So now that it's my everyday job and what I get to do for a living, I can see how proud they are. Like they came to a show I had 2 days ago in Arkansas, and I remember I'd look out in the crowd and I'd see Mom and Dad both wiping the tears away. So I know they're really proud. It's really humbling getting to kind of show them everything that they've taught me through the years, and get to live my life through that music, and just kind of see their reaction coming up from it.
Well, I was going to say, you even brought them up on stage a few times. What's it like to be able to just share that with them and have them up there to see what you're seeing, and also, like you said, to have them in the crowd and kind of just be there with you?
Yeah, so I think the first time I probably did that, we were at Gulf Coast Jam in Panama City, and my mom, she loves the beach. She could just sit there all day on the beach shore and watch the waves roll in. She ain't even got to get in the water. And so we made like a little vacation out of that. And We went down, I think, a day or two before the show, and we we stayed a day or two late after the concert, and just got to hang out and everything. And so it was super laid back backstage, and I got to bring my parents and everybody. And towards the end of the show, I mean, this crowd, it was 35,000 people, I think is what they said it was, and just getting to see 35,000 people sing a song back to me that I've wrote and that's on radio and has got inside the top 15 at country radio, and bring my parents out on stage and just letting them watch what I get to see every night. It was just unbelievable. That's a night I won't ever forget, and I don't think they will either.
And you mentioned, growing up in a family that loved music. Was there ever a chance that, you thought this was going to be the path you went down? I mean, obviously you didn't pick up a guitar until senior year of high school and things like that. But I mean, was this ever a thought like, hey, that could be a good career?
I never actually thought that I would get to make a living out of going around and singing my songs for people just like me. Here's the thing. I'm no different than nobody else that listens to my music. I'm just super, super blessed at the position I've been in my life where I get to do that. And I remember Mom would always tell me, whenever I'd go over to my grandma's house, she had a little 4-pronged cane that would stand up. I was probably 3 or 4 years old at the time. And I would go up, and that movie, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Have you ever seen that? That had just came out, and I just wanted to watch that movie over and over and over again. And I would go up to that little 4-pronged cane that she had, and it was just mouth height to me, because I was like 4 years old. I'd grab that cane and I'd start singing Man of Constant Sorrow in that cane. And my grandma thought that was the funniest thing in the world. And I always enjoyed music, but I never really thought I'd get to make a living out of it. Absolutely not. Quite honestly, I never gave it a thought. I knew that I hated mowing ditches, and that's what I did for a living up until I got my record deal. I was the guy that cut the grass in the medians of the road, but I never in a million years thought I'd get to do this for a living. Never.
Well, and like you said, while you were getting into your career, you were working full-time for your hometown city, playing gigs in the evening, weekends. I mean, how tough was it to do that? Because, I feel like you had to be exhausted all the time.
Yeah, I was. I was very exhausted, but not in the summer hours when you work for the city, or at least here. You would go in at 6:30 and get off at 2:30. So I would get off at 2:30, and I would be messaging people on Instagram, because 90% of the songwriters in Nashville, they have songwriter in their bio on their Instagram. So I would just start messaging random people, be like, "Hey, I don't get off work till 2:30, but I have these really cool ideas. If you get done writing today, or if you have a write today, and if you decide you want to write afterwards, I would love to. I'll drive up and come to Nashville after I get off work." Most of the time, people wouldn't do it, but sometimes they would. And I met this guy named McCoy Moore. He lives in Nashville now. I was at Bass Pro Shops whenever I met him. He was there with a guy named Bryce Malden, and got to talking to him about this gun that I was looking at through the little glass there at Bass Pro. And I asked him where he was from, and he said, "I'm from Florida, but I'm thinking about moving here and being a songwriter full time." Sure enough, we exchanged information. Fast forward about a year later, me and him are writing together, and we wrote my first ever song together, and we still write together to this day. Matter of fact, he has a song that we wrote together with another buddy of ours, John O'Clayton, that'll be on my full record when that comes out.
So I like how moments just seem to happen for you, and I think one of the favorite things that I have read is the moment of the sushi place and meeting Chris Janson.
Yeah.
Is that all true? And how did that go for you that night?
Yeah, that's 100 true. So this was when I was working for the city, of course, and nowhere in my little hometown here at Columbia sells guitar strings. So anytime I need anything to do with music, I have to drive 45 minutes north towards Nashville to Franklin, Tennessee. And I was trying to be slick and kill two birds with one stone and make a date out of going to get guitar strings with this girl. And I called her up and asked her if she wanted to ride with me, and she agreed to it. So we made that 45-minute ride up to Franklin. And we get to Guitar Center. I go in, I get my guitar strings. I come back out and hopped in the truck and asked her what she wanted to eat. And she thought for a second. She goes, Shane, I really like sushi. And I'm like, oh, gosh, please, no. I mean, the thought of sushi just turns my stomach. And so I wasn't going to be like, can we please just go to McDonald's or KFC or something, anything other than that garbage? So I wasn't going to say that. So I punched in sushi near me on my iPhone, kind of hoping that it would be like way out of the way, but there was one right down the road. And I was like, well, we'll go here. So we went to that closest sushi restaurant to that Guitar Center, and we go to walk in, and Chris Janson, of all people, holds the door for me when we went to walk in. And I'd been to 7 concerts my whole life, and to see him was 5 of those 7. So I immediately knew who it was. And I didn't say anything at first. I just kind of looked at him, and he kind of put his head down. I think he knew I knew who he was. And so I didn't say nothing. I didn't want to disturb him or anything. So we go and we eat. And, she eats. I took one bite of a spicy tuna roll and spit it out in the napkin. I hated it. And so I had it in my mind that whenever I saw Chris to get up to go pay, it was one of those restaurants where they bring you your ticket before you get done eating. They're just like, hey, whenever you're ready, just come up to the cash register to pay. So it was one of them restaurants. So I had it in my mind that I would go on and ask for the ticket. And whenever I saw Chris and his family get up to go leave and pay, that I would go up to him and tell him that I was a songwriter and that it would mean the world to me if he would listen to some of the music I'd been writing. Well, this girl that I'm with is about halfway done eating, and I see Chris stand up, and I grab our ticket, and I start marching myself across that restaurant floor, going straight to that cash register. And he sits right back down in his booth. He was letting his little boy out to go to the bathroom. And I jumped the gun a little early, and so I'm like in the middle of this restaurant like, oh, hell, what do I do now, So I look at the girl, and she's like, well, you're halfway committed at this point. You might as well go up to him. So I did, and I walked up to his table, and I kind of kneeled down beside him. And I said, hey, I'm a huge fan. I know who you are, and I'm not trying to make this obvious at all, but I'm a songwriter too, and it would really just mean a lot to me if you listen to some of the music I've been writing. And his wife was sitting right beside him. She spoke up. She said, hey, I'm Kelly. I'm Chris's wife. I'm his manager, and I'm also a music publisher. Is that a receipt you're holding in your hand? I'll write my email down on it. You could send us some songs, and have our word, we'll listen to them. And I was like, yes, ma'am, that'd be great. Thank you. And Chris looked up at me, and he said, did you just say yes, ma'am? And I said, yes, sir. And he said, I like that a lot. Pull up a chair and talk to me. So I did. The girl I was with goes back, finished eating her sushi roll. She didn't really care. And so I pulled up a chair, and we sat there, and we talked about hunting and fishing and God and music and writing songs and anything you could imagine. We talked about it. And so I got up and thanked them for talking with me and everything. And I went and paid and got out to the truck. And as soon as I got out to the truck, I pulled that receipt out that she had wrote her email down on. And I sent 3 of the best songs I thought I had at the time. I forwarded them to that email in one email. And at the bottom I said, if y'all ever need anything, please give me a call. And I wrote my phone number down. And I pressed send. Fast forward 2 weeks later, I'm at work. I'm weed eating a ditch in the median of the road. And I feel my phone ringing in my pocket. I pull it out of my pocket and I look at the caller ID and it said Janson. And I just kind of smirked. I swiped over on it and I answered it. And I said, hello? He said, hey, Shane. I said, hey, what's up? He said, what are you doing this morning? I said, well, it's a Wednesday morning at 8:30. Like most people, I'm at work. What are you doing? And he goes, well, he said, I listened to those songs you sent. He said, you're a really nice guy. And he said, I want you to go put your 2-week notice in at work and come out on tour with me. So I did. And that's literally how it started.
I mean, was there ever a moment when she gave you the email and all that you're like, I will never hear a word from them? This isn't gonna work.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, absolutely. Even to this day, like I'll just be sitting here thinking about everything that's kind of happened in the last year and a half, and I'm like, there's no way this has actually happened. Like, there's no way. I mean, it's a Cinderella story. And heck yeah, whenever she handed me that email, I was like, this is probably a fake email, They won't ever even see these songs. Well, sure enough, they did. And, I mean, it's crazy to even think that, somebody at that level would even give a city worker making $11 an hour time of day,
And did you really put in your 2-week notice right then and there, or were you like, let me wait and see?
No, I put it in that day. I hated my job. Now, my parents, however, they were like, Shane, you need to think about this. You really, really need to think about this. And I was like, man, I'm 21 years old. What have I got to lose? I'm making $11 an hour. I could go to McDonald's down the road and make more money than I'm making here. I'm not really worried about it. The biggest that my dad was worried about was the benefits. He was like, Shane, you won't have benefits nowhere else like this. Like, yeah, I mean, I guess you're right, but I don't want to do this for the rest of my life.
It seems to be a good call that you made there. And what was it like to be able to go out on tour and do songwriting and do so much of that and kind of see what it was like to live this life and kind of be part of it all?
Yeah, so he actually he was gracious enough to let me and the other opener, the direct support, Ray Fulcher. It was the Halfway to Crazy tour, so I was first to 3. Ray was direct support, and Chris was headlining, obviously, and he was nice enough to let me and Ray both actually ride that bus with his crew. And so we got to ride. We didn't have to spend any money on travel or anything like that. And, man, that's an experience I'll never forget. I remember, Chris would call me at 8:30 in the morning, and I'd still be, asleep because you don't go to bed till like 3 or 4 a.m. most of the time. And he'd call me at 8:30, and he'd be like, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, I just woke up, man. What are you doing? And he's like, well, I just got done deer hunting. I just killed a deer. I wish you were here to help me drag it out. And he'd be like, where y'all at right now? Where's the bus at? And I'd tell him, we're in Iowa or wherever we are. And he's like, let me see outside. And so I'd go open up a window and show him outside. And he'd be like, are you still liking it? And I'm like, yes, sir, I'm loving it. So that in itself, that's an experience I'll never forget. Because, I mean, up until I got my record deal, up until I went out on that tour, really, I'd only ever been to 4 states my whole life. It was Tennessee, Alabama, Kentucky, and Florida. And I'd never been anywhere else, really. And, I mean, now I've been to 48 of the 50 states. I've been to Canada. I mean, it's a blessing. It really is. I never thought I'd get to see everywhere that I've seen. And I'm a firm believer now that you don't realize what you're missing out on until you've seen what you're missing out on. And I've got to see, Niagara Falls. I've got to see Mexico. I've got to see Canada. I've got to see, I mean, it's just unbelievable. Like 3 days days ago, I was in California. I was looking at the ocean in California, and I remember, I mean, on radio tour, the first time I ever went to California, I had one of the best times of my life. I got to go to In-N-Out Burger. It was this town. Clint Eastwood used to be the mayor of this town, and it's called, I think it's Carmel, California, and it's like one of the highest towns in California. And you'd look out, and there would be rivers flowing into the ocean right there, and over to the left, there's these huge mountains, and it's just it's amazing. It really is amazing. British Columbia, Canada was one of the prettiest places I've ever been in my life.
I'm hoping to make a trip up there with some friends next summer to British Columbia, and it's cool when you get to experience so many things. And do you just pinch yourself all the time? Like, is this real? Am I dreaming?
Well, quite honestly, if I am dreaming, I don't want to wake up. So I don't really pinch myself anymore. But no, I mean, seriously, it's just, there's a lot of times I'll have to wake up at, 2:30, 3:30 in the morning to catch a 4 a.m. flight. And when that alarm clock goes off, you've only been laying there an hour and a half or 2 hours. So it's pretty much like a souped up nap is all that it is. And you're laying there and you're like, damn, this sucks. And then you lay there a little bit longer and you're like, no, it doesn't. We're going to play a show tonight for a sold out crowd. This is awesome. So, anytime I'm tired or anything like that, I just give it a split second and I'm just like, this is not bad at all. I'm not getting up this morning and punching a clock.
I was gonna say, you're not in the ditch anymore. You're having a good time. And how much fun was it to play the Opry, and not just once, but get to go back and do it again?
Oh man, so I've played the Opry now 3 times, the Grand Ole Opry, and I actually get to play there next week too. So I'm looking forward to that. The day of the 11th. So when this comes out, I'm going to be playing the Opry that night. So, and I mean, it's just to stand in that circle where everybody that's paved the way for country music has stood. I mean, that's just a feeling like you can't even put it into words. Every time I even go, even with because Chris invited me to go several times with him, just to share that experience. I mean, it's unbelievable. My mom, she's a huge country fanatic, and she would walk around, and I'm like, Mom, you can't be walking around back here. She'd be peeking in everybody's dressing rooms and just kind of creeping on everybody. And it's funny. She was walking around with my newborn nephew, her grandbaby. My sister just had a baby. She was walking around with that little newborn baby, hoping everybody out in the halls would stop and be like, oh, and sure enough, it worked. I mean, Daly and Vincent came up and talked to her, and hell, I mean, everybody you could imagine stopped and was like, this is the cutest little baby. So it worked, but I mean, I'm just like, Mom, please don't, please. We're at the Grand Ole Opry, so it's right funny.
I was going to say, parents, they tend to embarrass us no matter how old we are, no matter where we are. And, but it's a cool moment that you get to share with her. And, you also do this music thing as well, that, you get to do all these fun things about one of your latest songs, Still Picks Up. That's a pretty personal song for you that you wrote.
Oh, yeah. Still Picks Up. Man, I was on a deer hunting trip in eastern Kentucky with my dad. We try to take a hunting trip at least once a year, and we have a family farm up in Kentucky, in eastern Kentucky. And he had a stroke on a mountainside one morning, and man, it really freaked me out. I climbed down from my tree stand. We were supposed to be sitting all day, and about lunchtime, I saw him walking down this old logging road. And, it took him probably 20 minutes to walk this 50-yard stretch. And I knew something was wrong then. I mean, he was stumbling all over the place. And, so I started climbing down from my tree stand. And I got down and I looked up at him. I said, "Are you okay?" And whenever he looked up at me, the whole left side of his face was not moving. And I knew right then it was probably either a stroke or a heart attack. And so, I mean, we were an hour from the hospital at least. And, I mean, we were at least a mile from the four-wheeler. And, I mean, it was just straight up and down, just like that. And I didn't know how I was going to get him out, honestly. I had no cell phone service, or I'd have called a 911 to get a helicopter in there to get him out. I mean, that's how steep it was. And, I mean, I put my bow down, and I went to try to throw him over my shoulder, you know, and he was like, "Shane, put me down. You're going to get us both hurt." So I put him down, and I just walked him out, just holding him up the best I could until we got to the four-wheeler. It felt like it took forever, and got him to the four-wheeler, and we hopped on the four-wheeler and got him to the truck and put him in the truck, and finally got into cell phone service, and I called 911, called the hospital, and it was just little bitty regional hospital, and called ahead, and they were expecting him. They were standing out there with a wheelchair when we pulled up, and I remember sitting in that waiting room, not really knowing, you know, if I was going to get to see him again. I didn't know if he would have another one, or I was just really freaked out. And in that moment, I just started to think on all the good times we had instead of the bad, and I couldn't help but think of maybe some past arguments or past fights that we'd been in, and I just tried to think on the good instead of the bad in that moment. And when we wrote the song, it had been like, I think it was the 2 or 3 year anniversary of his stroke. Thank the Lord, he's about 99% to back how he was beforehand now. But I mean, anytime I play that song in front of him or my mom, they just sob. And quite honestly, when we were sitting there writing the song, I was crying like a baby writing it. So it's a really special song to me.
Well, I was gonna say, I feel like your songs have a personal touch to them. They're definitely painting the story. They're talking about things that you see in life. And what's it like to share personal experiences, or is that kind of the goal when you go in, is share things that have happened to you or things like that, or is it an idea? How does that go for you?
And my thing is I'm very proud to say before I'm an artist, I'm a songwriter. And I like to write real, real stuff. I don't want to go out every night and sing about something that I have no idea about. Even if it is catchy, if the meaning in the lyrics aren't there, chances are I probably don't want to sing it. So I try to. Chances are, if you're going through something, somebody that's going to listen to your music is too, and that's probably why they're going to listen to your music. And I don't have number ones yet. Hopefully someday I will. But I'm a firm believer that if you write what you're feeling, somebody else is feeling it too, and somebody else is going through it too. And I like to. I'm not really one to talk about my feelings necessarily, so I try to lean on songwriting to express myself, if that makes sense, and kind of use it as a therapy, because I'm not really one to sit down with somebody and talk about my feelings. I would much rather get a pen and paper and a guitar and talk about it that way.
You just prefer to share with 35,000 people in front of you.
You're right. Exactly right.
And too, you work in stuff, like you said, that is true to you. I know you've worked in Mama's Chicken, everything like that. How much fun is it to kind of weave those little things in there for folks?
And it's a lot of fun. Like I said, I mean, there's a huge difference in a house and a home. And my mama and dad both, they thought that it was really important the whole time growing up that me and my sister and them, we sat down every night at the supper table and we, don't get your phone out, don't dismiss yourself before everybody's done eating. We're gonna sit there like a family and we're gonna have supper just like a normal family. I don't know if you've ever seen the Waltons, but they always sit down. It's pretty much the same concept as like Duck Dynasty. At the end of every episode, they sit down at the supper table, they pray, and they're like, "Hey, pass me them taters," So it's the same concept, and I feel like if everybody in today's world had a little bit more of that family life and a little less video games, that this world wouldn't be so crazy. So that's just how I feel.
Well, like you said, it's very relatable. I mean, I think in your songs and everything, people can see themselves, and that's what's so cool. And like you said, you've been able to share those out now. And how much fun is it being on stage these days? You're not playing the same six songs that you're playing your songs, and people are even singing them back to you.
Yeah, that in itself, it's unbelievable. Like in the set that I'm doing right now, and heck, I mean, I'll have a set list for most shows, but 99% of the time I veer off of the set list. I'll whip out a new song that I wrote that day or a couple of days prior. My band's standing there going, "What the hell is this?" And I mean, like the other night, I played one that I'd only ever played for two other crowds, and I just kind of get a feel of what the crowd is feeling. And hell, I mean, if they want to slow dance, I'll throw in a Keith Whitley song even sometimes. And it's just it's a lot of fun, and getting to go around and sing my songs especially. It's just like, man, I don't deserve this. I mean, like I said, I never even dreamed of doing something like this for a living. And getting to hear people sing my song back to me, and even hearing my stuff on the radio, I mean, that still gives me chills every single time. So it's a huge blessing.
Well, and you kind of teased this earlier too. You've got Still Picks Up as your latest one that you put out. What's coming the rest of 2023? What you looking forward to 2024 that you can tell me that won't get you in trouble with anybody?
Well, I'll say this. I know we have a full album already recorded. However, I've talked management and the label into letting me go in because I'm constantly writing songs. So I've talked the label and management into letting me go back in here in a couple months, probably a month or two realistically, and do. I think we're going to end up doing 3 more songs to add to that project. Not to say, not to say that a full album will be the next thing that we release, but there is definitely more music getting cut and getting sang in the studio here very, very soon. So I'm very excited for that.
I like it. And I'm guessing more shows, more getting out there in front of folks this year, next year.
Oh yeah, yeah. We're I can't really say necessarily who or what is in the works for next year, but something is. I'll say that. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to be a lot of places, to say the least. And yeah, I mean, for the rest of the year, I think I have about a dozen more shows, and then it's hunting season and writing songs. So the year is starting to wind down a little bit. Like the month of July, we were on the road for 27 to 31 days, and I mean, it was just crazy. I think this year, once we wrap up these last 12 or 13 shows, I think we're going to be just at or just over 200 shows for this year. So we've been moving. We have been moving, and we played some really big shows too. Just stuff that like I said, I never thought I'd get to do, and it's it's been the best year of my life, honestly, and hopefully it just keeps going up from here.
Well, like I said, I love your music. The story is awesome, and Shane, you got a bright future because, like I said, man, you're doing good things and doing it the right way. And I appreciate you sharing a drink with me, and this was a blast, man.
It was, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Find more from Hops and Spirits at hopspirits.com.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.